guys, so today we are finally speaking about amenorrhea. So I didn't have my period for 4 years, and I think I lost it when I was about 18. And if I'm honest, at that time I didn't find it to be that upsetting. I guess in many ways it was quite a relief, and it didn't bother me all that much. I didn't want to fall pregnant, and yeah, it was just quite nice not to have it. So I wasn't necessarily upset about it. And yeah, that just continued for a few years. And I think as I was getting a little bit older, I started kind of missing it, or feeling like I was missing out on something that was quite important to me as a woman. But then over and above that, when I was sort of learning more about how bad it is not to have your period, it also kind of started to scare me a little bit. So I think this is just my basic understanding, but really your hypothalamus is in your brain, and it regulates the release of the hormones of your reproductive hormones like progesterone and estrogen. And it's gotten to that point where your body is like, I cannot function normally, and in the current state that I'm in, I cannot sustain life. So to protect myself, I'm going to shut down reproductive functioning. It's quite serious if that's sort of what your body is doing, if that's kind of along the lines of what your body is thinking. And it's quite sad actually as well that your body is in such a depleted state that it does not feel that it would be able to carry another life, or that it can sustain the cycle of menstruation every month. Obviously, my treatment team was concerned about it, and they were it did become quite a thing of we need to get your period back, and it started becoming important to me as well. And it started becoming important to me for 2 reasons. I guess for 3, and I think the one I already spoke about was that I actually wanted to feel more in touch with my own body, and I wanted to experience the things that my body should be doing, and that kind of almost celebration of being a woman. I wanted that back. But the other 2 reasons, and the second one leads into that, is that although even when I was 22, I didn't really know if I wanted to have children. I didn't know if I was even going to get married. So, I've never been that person that's I want to have children my whole life. You might be one of those people who's just dreamed of having children your whole life, and you've seen that as your purpose. And I've never had that pressing down on me, that sort of desire. So yeah, I think I didn't always find it so distressing at the thought of never being able to have children. But I also would hate the thought of, if I was even in a position where I wanted to have children, where I would have an additional stress or challenge in falling pregnant. And so that did start weighing down on me a bit, was that, well, yes, now because I am in my early 20s, it's not, and obviously I'm not in my early 20s anymore, but at that time, yes, it wasn't necessarily that important for me. I also had to recognize the fact that maybe in 10 years' time it would be, and I would look back and feel so devastated at the fact that I didn't change anything to improve the situations, that it's almost going to be harder to fall pregnant. Now, I've never tried to fall pregnant, so I don't know if I'm still going to have challenges in that department. I'm hoping not, just because I have been in such a good cycle for a long time. I know some of you might be quite young, and doesn't necessarily weigh on you too much, but I guess this is one of those things of just having foresight and just trying to think about your long-term future. And if you in any way think that maybe someday in the future you will want to have children, then I think the sooner you just sort out your reproductive health, the better. The thing that really, and I still find this quite hard to talk about, the thing that scared me the most was what it does to your bones. So basically, sorry Daisy, this is my very basic understanding, but estrogen, I think specifically, and probably progesterone as well, has a very significant role to play in your bone density. And so when you are without your period, specifically hypothalamic amenorrhea, it means actually that your body is not producing the right amounts of estrogen and progesterone. And that means that your bones are not as dense as they should be. And that's why when women go into menopause, they often start suffering from osteoporosis, because that's when the body stops producing it naturally for aging reasons. But when you are in your 20s or in your teens, that shouldn't be the case. And unfortunately, it does lead to issues in bone density, osteoporosis, and osteopenia. And that is actually terrifying. And I don't want to scare anyone, but in the same way I do. I think when we are young, we don't really think about it that much, but our bones play such a crucial role in our movement, in our ability to function. Our spinal cord, if you think about it, is really the only structure keeping us up. And when that is jeopardized, what happens to you? You can become bedridden. It's horrifying. And unfortunately, I kind of had this reality check when I went for a bone density test, and I think I was probably 21, and I went for a bone density test, and it showed that I had the starting signs of osteopenia, which I think is the onset to osteoporosis, and I was 21, and that's just not something that a 21-year-old should have at all. When you're 21, your bones should be at their strongest, and should be, those years are actually when your bones should be becoming the most dense to carry you through menopause and old age. And so to be on that kind of deficit when you are so young is really, really worrying. And as I say this, I feel scared. It's something I don't really like talking about, because I don't like to think about it, because it really upsets me so much that is what happened to me. And I do have complete faith in full healing, so I don't let it get me down. And I've actually never broken a bone, and I feel strong and fine, but who knows what's down the line for any of us if we've had an eating disorder that's really affected our bones. So yeah, it's not easy to talk about or to face that reality, but it is very, very real. And I don't know why we don't speak about it more. Maybe because it is hard to talk about. Maybe it's because we don't want to think about it. But I just think, if you have any hope of going into a different space in your life where things are more positive, if you have any hope of one day having children, of being functional, of enjoying your life, then just try to find that recovery as fast as you can, and try to work through the emotions that are leading you down this road of self-destruction. And eat even when you don't want to, and when you're eating, just think, I'm doing something so good for my body. That means that when I am 60 years old, or even 40 years old, at least it won't mean that I'm hunched over, or it won't mean that when I knock my knee on a table it shatters, because these things happen. They happen. People with osteoporosis whose bones are too weak, and these are people in their 30s that have had eating disorders, or still do, have broken their hand from knocking it on a table. And yeah, I don't want to be like that, so fragile. I want to be robust and strong and be able to do things and not live under that fear. So it's very real. It's a very real side effect to an eating disorder. And yeah, I also just think, so I obviously didn't have my period for 4 years, and I think the longer you don't have it, the harder it is to get it back. Because this video is taking so long, I'm not going to go into kind of the steps that I took to get my period back. I'll do a separate video on that. But yeah, I just really want to press upon you the fact that it's not a joke, and even if you don't want to have children, I don't think any of you want to be walking around hunched over at the age of 30, or to break a leg every time you walk into a table, which is me often. So yeah, please, if there's one thing you just want to do for yourself, just to increase your chances of having a happy future, please try and eat and try and nourish your body, and do everything in all of your power to break free from this. Invest in therapy, do the hard work, so that you can at least start off with a strong skeletal system. I believe osteopenia is reversible, but I still think, for me personally, I think those were those years that I should have been building up my bone density. I wasn't. I was probably doing the opposite, so I don't know what is in store for me, but that's okay. Like, as I said, I do have complete faith that it will be okay, but yeah, it's not very nice to know that you kind of started things off on the wrong foot in that way. So yeah, I hope you just hear my heart in this, yeah, and you look after yourselves, yeah.